I met Maria last week in Curacaví, just about half an hour away from Santiago de Chile in the rural areas. She grows flowers and she sells them at the market during the weekends. And she needs money to actually run her small business. She needs money to buy seeds, she needs money to buy fertilizers, and she also needs money to make small repairs to her greenhouse. Unfortunately, the local bank doesn't really give her any credit, any loans, because she doesn't have any formal collateral to back up those loans. But she's lucky because there is a local microfinance institution who is able to provide, this local microfinance institution really understands farming, understands what she does, and so is able to provide these loans without really any collateral. At the beginning of the conversation, she was actually really smiling. She was talking about two sons. She was talking about the beautiful flowers that she was growing, but then she started becoming more serious. And she started telling us a very unfortunate story. Just last year, some goats, some naughty goats, just broke into her greenhouse and ate all the plants that she planted. And then she started becoming even more serious. She started crying. She said just a couple of weeks ago, her truck that she used to move flowers, sell flowers to the market, just broke down. And she had to find 1,000 euros to change the engine. And nobody was there to help, except the local microfinance institution that again gave her a loan that allow her to move forward. She pays an interest on those loans, and with that interest, the microfinance institution is able to cover some of the cost and also make some profit, in order that there are many more investors that can invest in this microfinance institution, and as a result, being able to give many more loans to people like Maria. This is great, isn't it? I mean, you can really help many people like Maria at the same time as having a really a financial return for investors. And when I first started into the sector, impact investing in microfinance, what I really was fascinated was about the potential for scale. This methodology could really channel a lot of resources into development. Many more resources that the traditional philanthropic model could actually do. Think about it. If donations worldwide amount to more or less the capital, donation capital amounts to more or less 300 billion euros, which seems like a really big number. But if you really divide it by the 2 billion people living with less than $2 a day, it makes no more than 150 euro per person. Can we really solve poverty with that? I don't think so. On the other side, if you're able to offer a small, even small, financial return, you can tap into the 300 trillion global capital pool of investments trying to looking for a commercial investment. So a completely new world really opens up. Now, impact investing has so far very much been focused on reaching scale. And after 8 years of reaching scale and getting more and more of these kind of investors coming in. However, after 8 years that I've been involving and making this kind of investments, I believe we need to rethink how we do things. I believe we need to, in addition to maximize scale, we also need to increase the effectiveness with which we are channeling this money, and as a result, transforming people's lives. Now, you can think about the 300 trillion euro global capital pool as a huge, very deep river, and you can think of poverty as some dry fields that desperately need water. The traditional philanthropic approach, it has been to just go ahead with helicopters, picking up buckets of waters from the river and dropping them into all these dry fields. This approach has some advantages. You can get wherever you want, and you can be very precise. But the issue is that it's very expensive, and really there is only a certain amount of water that you can actually deliver. Impact investing, on the opposite, is like building canals. It's like building deep canals that can channel water to some of those dry fields. And over the past years, as I said before, we have been focusing on building those canals as deep and as long as possible. But that is not enough. We really need to think about where to build those canals, how, and also think about where we can actually use helicopters instead of the canal. The first challenge to do this is really trying to understand where to build the canals in order to meet those fields that need water the most. And to share an example on this, because in order to avoid potential floodings, because if you bring too much water in places that there is already water, you might risk flooding, or just wasting water. Now, let me give you an example of this. Over the past few years, I met with many people, several people, not many people, but several people who received loans and have been worse off, just because they didn't need one or they've not been able to actually use it productively. And this is the example of Juan, for example, who used a loan to increase the production of pumpkins, but unfortunately, when he did that, there was no appetite for extra pumpkins in his market. So the microfinance institution who provided that loan made a mistake. They really shouldn't have given a loan. And by the way, he also had a number of other loans outstanding. So this final loan really put him in trouble. The second issue that we really need to address is in the same way that when you're building a canal, you need to understand the complexity of the topography. There are valleys that you might not be able to go through a canal. There might be mountains you might not be able to actually go over with the canal. Right? But in the same way, impact investing, it's really, we really need to understand the complexity of poverty in order to, the complexity of poverty is really, also it's very important to say, we will see it further on in the presentation, it's really, very often there is not a clear causality between an intervention and the expected outcome. And this can be explained through this framework. Poverty typically starts with the lack of economic resources, which then prevent people from accessing basic services such as water, healthcare, housing, etc., which then prevent them from finding employment opportunities or other income-generating opportunities, which then put them further into a position of poverty. And this is even further, it's even worse given the additional uncertainty of the situation in which poor people live with. There's been different tools that have been created to address these issues. Some of those are based on donations, and some of those are based on impact investments. So on business models that can actually be funded through impact investments. To really address the lack of resources, you do need economic aid. You really need to give things for free, money for free, to allow poor people to just grab the first step of the ladder and be able to climb up. The second tool, it's what we call infrastructure or ecosystem building, which is basically consists on building either business models or just offering for free some of those basic services to offer basic needs that the poor people need. And finally, access to financial services, microfinance. And we saw this very clearly in Maria's situation. Clearly, helicopters have to go where, to cover certain basic needs like economic aid and in some cases of infrastructure building, but they should not crowd out in places where where actually sustainable business model can actually get there. Now, which brings me to my final point, and probably the most important point that really characterizes what we do as a company, that if we really want to achieve our objective of transforming life of millions, billions of people, we need to change our mindset. So far, we have, as an industry, very much focused on measurement, on measuring very good and very sophisticated social metrics. However, this is not enough. We need to move from just measuring into actually start working hand in hand with those institutions and really try to help them improve their business model, exactly in the same way that financial indicators help traditional companies. Traditional companies have used financial indicators to really improve their business strategy and as a result improve their business line. We should really be doing the same. Let me share with you a few ideas on how we actually are doing this and how we are implementing this. When we decide whether or not to make an investment, we analyze we analyze not only the financial performance of the company we're planning to invest in, but really try to dive into the social performance, which kind of social impact this institution can have on local communities. And we do that by asking some important questions, such as, is the social mission and social objectives really embedded into the organization? Is management really committed in achieving these objectives? Is the company really understanding people's, clients' needs in order to offering good products, products that were, for example, good for Maria? Is the organization transparent enough to really be able to empower their clients to take the smart decision? And then we use all this information to identify some of the key weaknesses of this institution. And with that, we agree with management. We only give the loan or we make an equity investment to this company if and only if management commit to address some of those weaknesses that have been identified. And we try to, as much as possible, to work with the institution to really do that, providing them technical assistance if necessary too. And this is a lot of work. Compared to a traditional private equity firm, is much more people intensive, but we believe that this is what we need to do to really be able to transform millions and millions of people's lives. Now, going back to Maria, I'm really not sure whether she will be better off she will be getting out of poverty completely if she's going to, just by getting the loan. But I'm sure that we're supporting organizations and microfinance institutions that are really listening to their clients. I'm pretty sure that in the longer term, Maria will certainly be better off, even if some goats will break into her greenhouse again and eat her beautiful flowers. Thank you.